This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's tax season, and we're all a bit tired of numbers. But here's one you need to hear. $16.5 billion. That's how much the IRS flagged for possible identity fraud last year. Now here's a good number. 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed. Save up to 40% your first year at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Hello, I'm Wendy, and that's Beth.
Hello.
And we would like to take a moment to welcome new listeners. So welcome, Buiti Binafi and Bienvenidos Bitches to Fruitloops, Serial Killers of Color.
Fruitloops, Serial Killers of Color is a weekly podcast hosted by us, a multiracial, multi-generational set of BFFs. How did we get here? Well, when we realized that podcasts like ours about marginalized perpetrators and victims with hosts like us didn't exist, we just decided to do it ourselves.
Yes, so join us as we tell the fascinating stories of the crimes and the victims that often go untold by the mainstream media. And because context is everything, we often add in historical and cultural details of the crimes and criminals in order to get a sense of what might have led to these crimes.
We love talking about true crime, but we also use these true crime stories as an opportunity to talk about race relations, systemic racism, policing, history, and culture. We learn something new every day, and we hope that you do too. So dive into our feed and share an episode with a friend. You can expect to hear a new episode every Thursday. Oh, and be forewarned, we do sometimes use explicit language, and some of the content we discuss may be disturbing to some listeners. But we also have a lot of fun, so join us.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning into this episode regarding the Wichita Massacre. This is an older episode that Beth and I decided to replay for y'all. We went back and listened to it ourselves, and a couple things I noticed about this episode is how our show has evolved. For example, I used to say the news was racist, but I didn't add the allegedly until later. And so there's that. The other thing is we don't use Podbean anymore. So there's no Podbean patrons or patrons anymore. And Beth would say it really, really weird. It bothered a lot of people. Not me, though, because I love her so much. But all we have now is Patreon. Our Patreon is pretty active and wonderful. We have a lovely community and lots of content, so go check that out. Also, we were so new when we recorded this Wichita Massacre episode that I didn't really have a soundboard, so I just used a speaker connected to my phone for the hip-hop air horn. So forgive me for the sound. And also, I wanted to say, please forgive me for invoking He Who Shall Not Be Named, an R&B singer who harmed many, many people, but apologies. Also, just reminder that Fruitloops is simply not for everyone, and we are okay with that. Hopefully you are too. There is a little update that we have on the survivors. There is a memorial scholarship, a Forget Me Not Memorial Scholarship that has been erected since this massacre occurred. So I want to be sure to highlight that. And if you wanted to hear more about the story, you can check out the show notes, but also check out a show that is on TV called Homicide for the Holidays on the Oxygen Network. And you might see somebody from Fruitloops in that program talking about that case. If you have any case ideas or how not to get murdered tips or any hot takes about this case or others or shout outs or just want to say hi or leave a message, we've been thinking about you. We love you. And we are just so happy that you're listening. Enjoy the show. Welcome to Fruit Loops, episode 14. Thank you for listening. Fruit Loops is a podcast about true crimes committed by people of color and their victims that we don't hear or know much about. Now, contrary to popular belief, not all serial killers are white. There are many well-documented cases of serial killers of color, and Fruit Loops is a podcast all about them. We will take deep dives into the fascinating lives and crimes of serial killers and true crimes committed by people of color and their victims that the media and entertainment commonly leave out because the news is racist.
And we are Wendy and Beth. She's Wendy. I'm Beth.
That's right.
We are not journalists, investigators, or psychologists.
Nope.
Just a couple of gals interested in true crime.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the things that we discuss on this podcast may be triggering and or disturbing to some listeners. In this podcast, we discuss sexual assault, torture, race, and murder, and sometimes we use profanity. Listener discretion is advised. Also, the opinions expressed in this podcast are just that, our opinions. Please send any questions or comments to fruitloopspod@gmail.com. and enter at your own risk.
That's right. So before we dive into the episode, let's tell the people what they will be hearing.
Okay, so today we'll be talking about the Wichita Massacre, a case in which two brothers went on a crime spree in December of 2000. This subject was suggested by one of our friends in our Fruit Loops discussion group on Facebook, and her name is Karen.
Thanks, Karen. Big ups to Karen. How are you, Beth? What's new?
I'm good. I'm really excited because my sister did the 23andMe DNA testing, and I found out that I have an African ancestor.
What?
Yeah.
I knew it!
I wasn't really expecting that at all. Wendy, if you remember at one time, you suggested that I might be biracial, but I have some of my genealogy going back a couple hundred years, and everything I knew about my family on both sides showed that I was just white. Very, very white. My genealogy shows that my family's from England, Ireland, Scotland, Germany, and France. And if you recall, when you suggested that I could have an African ancestor, I said,
I just knew it.
I didn't think so, but that would be cool. And well, it is. It's so fucking cool.
We're so excited. I am so excited. It's like Christmas.
I know. I was irrationally excited to find out that I had an African ancestor. And 23andMe is pretty cool because they break down what your DNA says about where your ancestors are from and approximately when. So this African ancestor, they said, was probably born in the 1700s and was 100% Southeast African. That time period's kind of problematic because that was when slave traders were active, but I don't know. I don't know what to think about that.
We can still rejoice in this wonderful news.
Yes.
We are rejoicing.
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
I told everybody I was so excited.
I want every white person in my life to take this test because I guarantee that most people probably have a little bit of
something,
a little bit of flavor, a little bit of spice,
something in there.
Black sees black, and that's how I knew that I knew there was something in there. So I'm so excited about your news, and next time I see you, I'm gonna be like, give me 5 on the black hand side. So I don't have anything newsy, but so we work in the same office for the same white people, and there's like this office. So there's office etiquette, right? You don't cook your smelly fish.
No fish
in the break room.
Yeah.
No fish.
You know, you don't talk on speakerphone. You don't make all your calls on speakerphone because it's rude in the cubicle next to you. And I have something that I would like to get off of my chest.
All
Now, I
right.
am bringing this to the podcast altar. Amen. So everybody be prepared to lay hands on me or this trifling ass white lady. Yeah, we work with. Now, to the white lady who arrives at the office at the same time as I do, who I have developed very crafty ways of avoiding, but somehow my ways are not crafty enough. I know you've had some health issues, some family issues. I know way more about you than I need to know. And I just want to make a request on the podcast altar to please keep your mess and your news about baked goods to your damn self. Also, stop hovering over me at the sink in the break room as I wash out my coffee mug. You wait your turn, bitch. Already,
so true.
I feel 10 pounds lighter. I feel 10 pounds lighter.
She's just one of those
All
crazy
right.
ladies. Just one of those
She
crazy
is.
ladies. Yeah, she has to tell you like it's just TMI. TMI,
Everything.
lady. TMI.
All the things.
Mm-hmm.
All the things. But has she asked me how
No,
I feel
never.
about
Not once.
anything?
Nope.
Nope.
I'm sure she knows
Nope,
nothing
not
about
once.
us, but we know so much about
He
her.
He knows so much about her. So, sister friend, back off. So, now we're going to move on to the part of our show where we shout out any content by people of color or about people of color or any true crime goodies. And boy, am I excited to pop off about this one. If you have not already heard, if you're under a rock somewhere and you have not already heard about the Dr. Death podcast, holy moly, it is so good. If you loved Dirty John, was it Dirty John or Dirty Johnny?
Dirty John.
I might be getting it. Dirty John.
Yeah.
You will absolutely love Dr. Death. We've heard about Dr. Death before, but this is not that boring old British white doctor who killed hundreds of patients.
Boring.
No, this is an yes, super boring. This is a different evil white guy, and he's from America, United States,
Texas.
It's a 6-episode series. Texas. Don't mess with Texas. It's a 6-episode series about Dr. Christopher Dunch, a surgeon in Dallas, Texas. It is reported and hosted by veteran healthcare journalist Laura Bield. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, and I'm sorry. There are interviews of former friends and patients. Dr. Dunch was a neurosurgeon who radiated confidence. He thought he was the shit, and he claimed he was the best in Dallas. And if you had back pain and tried everything else, Dr. Dunch could give you the spine surgery that would take your pain away. But soon his patients started to experience complications, even death, and the system failed to protect them. It is very graphic. Personally, in my career, I get to read a lot of medical records. I love reading about surgery. I love hearing about surgery. So if you don't like that, brace yourself and fast forward through those parts. But I mean, the only word I can use to describe it is it's delicious. And we highly recommend it. So
yeah,
Dr. Death.
Yeah.
Listen.
I totally burned through the episodes that are up right now, and I can't wait for the next one to drop. It's absolutely fascinating. And yeah, the surgical stuff, it was actually kind of hard for me to listen to, but it's just so interesting. And Dirty John was also really, really good, so I highly recommend that one as well. Okay, these full disclosure, these are all a bunch of white people, but it's still good.
They are. It is true, a true crime goodie, and we have to share when it's a goodie.
Yep,
we gotta share it. We gotta share. So there you go. So extra, read all about it. Do we have any serial killer crime news?
I don't have any today, so I'll let you go.
Okay. Here in Arizona, a man was charged with the murders of 2 little girls in Tucson, Isabel Celis and Maribel Gonzalez. According to ABC 15 sources, charges have been filed against 36-year-old Christopher Clements for homicide in both cases. Amen. Clements is currently in custody in Maricopa County Jail on multiple fraud and burglary charges, according to online court records. 6-year-old Isabel Solis disappeared from her family home in April 2012 in Tucson, Arizona. Her remains were found in 2015, and DNA evidence confirmed that it was her. Maribel Gonzalez was 14 years old when she went missing from her home in Tucson in 2014. Her body was found several days later, miles away in a desert area near Trico Road and Avon Valley Road in Tucson. And I go to Tucson a lot, but I still am not very familiar with the layout, so I don't know exactly where those are.
No, none of those sound familiar to me at all.
But Clements has a lengthy criminal record, including convictions for a child sex crime, identity theft, assault, and failing to register as a sex offender. I read his rap sheet, and it goes back to like
Holy
1997. Clements, yeah, he's been in the crime game for a while. He's been held in a Maricopa County Jail for months, where he's currently facing several additional criminal charges for burglary and fraud. And the sources that I found said that there is concern that Clements could have other child victims other than Solis and Gonzalez, given the criminal history as a sex offender. And I don't doubt it. And I hope they get to.
Yeah, I kind of wondered about that when I read the story.
So let us know what
Terrible.
you think. We did post something about it on our Facebook discussion group. So if you guys have any thoughts on this crime, please tell us.
Claire is practicing her breathing for her upcoming yoga retreat in Bali. Has she ever done yoga before? No. But Claire worked with Empower on her savings and investment strategy. She got good at money, so she can be a little bad. Empower. Invest well, live a little. Join our 19 million customers today at empower.com.
Past performance is not indicative of future returns. Investing involves risk. You may lose money. Advisory services are provided for a fee by Empower Advisor Group, LLC, EAG, a registered investment advisor with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Om Namaste.
On the morning of August 1st, 1966, shots ring out from the observation deck of the clock tower on the University of Texas campus. It marks the infamous beginning of the modern era of mass shootings in America.
You're listening to Stop the Killing podcast. Join us as we take you behind the crime scene tape to explain global mass shootings and mass attacks. I'm Sarah Ferris, but more importantly, this is Catherine Schweit, the former head of the FBI's active shooter program.
I spent 5 years as the FBI's top executive looking for answers to the mass shooting crisis. I've been at the shooting scenes, I've traced heroic acts of bravery, and I've sat silently and listened to the heart-wrenching stories from survivors.
Amongst this horror, there is hope. We all hold the key to stop the killing. You just need to know how to unlock the door. Download Stop the Killing and be part of the solution. Search Stop the Killing on Apple, Spotify, and all the usual suspects.
Our episode today is about Reginald and Jonathan Carr. They were a pair of brothers who embarked on a horrific crime spree in Wichita during December 2000, known as the Wichita Massacre or the Wichita Horror. So, not technically what we usually think of when we talk about serial killers, but they did kill several people over the span of days. So let's get into some stats. Okay, so the brothers, Jonathan and Reginald Carr, are responsible for 5 deaths, 2 near deaths, and they also killed a dog. Their robbery, mass rape, kidnapping, and killing spree started on December 7th and ended on December 14th in 2000 in Wichita, Kansas, everybody. Also, all of the victims were white. 3 men, 2 women, and their MO was abduction, rape, and shooting.
All right. So I say that like, all right.
All right.
No,
We don't
it's
mean
not.
like that.
It's not all right.
It's not all right.
Not all right.
No.
Yeah, we're just gonna get into their early life. Reginald was born in 1978, and Jonathan was born in 1980. They were both born in Dodge City, Kansas. And these kids had a really fucked up childhood.
They sure did.
Yeah. Their parents fought often and violently. They had a younger sister who died of leukemia when she was just 3. Their parents were fighting all the time, and I'm sure the death of the younger sister didn't help with the marriage. And eventually they split up, and the father completely dropped out of the boys' lives. Just never saw them again. After their father left the picture, the boys witnessed their mother being abused by her boyfriends. And according to different sources, the boy's father, when he was in their life, and their mother's boyfriends sexually abused their older sister. And I suspect that at the very least, Reginald was sexually abused by someone in the family as well.
Oh, absolutely.
And maybe both of them were.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know who, because they never said who might have sexually abused him, but pretty sure he was.
Yeah. Again, hurt people.
Yes.
So their mother, Janice Harding, married a second abusive man who was violent and even once put a gun to Janice's head. Janice was prone to sudden outbursts of rage, and when she would discipline the boys, she would beat them while they were naked with electrical cords. As she did this, she would have her other children hold the boys down and watch. The boy's mother also abused drugs like cocaine and marijuana, which I don't think marijuana is a big deal, but the cocaine is. And she has said that the boys did not experience much warmth or intimacy when they were children. That she wasn't a huggy or a kissy person, and that the family did not even celebrate holidays. And Jonathan tried to commit suicide when he was 16. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, he tried to commit suicide by drinking antifreeze.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah, I'm not even
Really?
sure. Yeah, I'm not sure how he survived that, but he did. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, clearly it was bad.
And then it just gets worse.
Okay.
Reginald Carr began having sexual interactions with girls starting at age 6.
Come again?
Yeah, he was 6 years old. And what I read was
Okay.
that he was basically molesting girls at 6 years old.
Oh.
And by age
Baby.
7, he said that he began frequent sexual intercourse with a female cousin at 7.
Okay.
And I don't know how old
Okay.
the cousin was. So I don't know if this
Okay.
cousin was the one who was molesting him. I don't know. But in any case, he was having sex at age 7. By age 11,
All
Reginald
right.
Carr became a duffel bag boy, which is someone who's usually a juvenile, recruited by a drug dealer to sell and distribute drugs and exchange money. Juveniles are vulnerable to this because the drug dealers know if a kid gets popped on a drug charge, they are less likely to get prison time and thus not slow down the operations.
Correct. This has been Culture Corner with Wendy and Beth. In case you were wondering what a duffel bag
Bag
was.
boy. Now
All
you know.
right. It is also a rap song by Lil Wayne.
Oh.
Anyway, yeah. The boys used to shoot animals with BB guns. When they couldn't find animals to shoot, they would just shoot each other. Reginald to this day has a BB gun or a BB bullet lodged in his head. Reginald got in many fights in school, and he even beat up a teacher in the 9th grade.
Wow.
He got suspended in 8th grade for sexually harassing a teacher, and it just gets better. By age 13, he became a gang member. He had a long rap sheet way before the Wichita crimes were committed.
Yeah.
So let's get into the setting. Where did this take place? Paint the picture for us, Beth.
It took place in the heartland. In Wichita, Kansas, in December 2000. The temperature at the time hovered around 20 degrees, and it was snowy.
Wichita is one of those places on my list of places I will never go.
Yeah.
Anyway, have you been there?
We drove around the country a lot when I was a kid, so I've been to pretty much every state in the country.
Whoa.
I've been through Kansas. Yeah. The only state I haven't been to is actually Hawaii. That I think I've been to every other state, even Alaska.
That is so cool. Oh my gosh.
So we drove.
I just want to put you in I just want to give you a hug. That is so cool.
Yeah, my parents were pretty cool. That was our vacation in the summer, was to drive around the country. Drove to different places. That's what they like to do. So yeah, it was pretty cool. So we drove through I don't know if I've been to Wichita, but we've driven through Kansas many times. So yeah, since it is in the heartland, it sounds so nice. Center of the country. It's one of those states that if you want to get somewhere else, you're going to drive through it.
Okay. Yeah, I think I mentioned this later on in our episode, but I have never met one Black person from Kansas. And I don't know any Black people who want to go there. So anyway.
This is a tangent.
Yes, love it. Go.
When I was visiting my daughter in North Dakota, you think North Dakota is just a bunch of white people up there.
Yeah, that's what I assumed.
But the town that she lives in, it's a boom town because there's oil up there. So it is actually quite diverse. I was really surprised.
Shut up! Really?
Yeah.
Whoa,
There's a lot of
phones.
different kinds of people up there. Hispanic, African American, Native American. Yeah, there's a lot of different people up there.
That's incredible. Oh my gosh, well, that's so great. Oh,
yeah.
Man, see, I said I assumed that it was all white. And you know what happens when you assume? You make an ass out of you and me. And I think just did that.
I think in a lot of North Dakota, it's a bunch of white people. But in that particular town, because it's a boom town, work attracts all kinds of people. The work is there, so they go there.
You know what? Shout out to South Dakota. Okay. Shortly after the brothers arrived in Wichita, they embarked on their spree. And on December 8th, 2000, they robbed 23-year-old assistant basketball coach Andrew Schreiber. As he exited a convenience store, the brothers held him up at gunpoint and forced him into his car. They ordered him to drive to multiple ATMs where he withdrew money. They got a total of $800 from him. He feared for his life, but he was spared. And they left him in a field and shut out his tires on his car so that he could not drive away.
Then on December 11th, they attacked Anne Walenta, a youthful-looking 55-year-old. She was a cellist and librarian with the Wichita Symphony Orchestra. As orchestra librarian, she was responsible for ordering and keeping track of its music. Classical music was the great love of Walenta's life, coming just after her husband and 2 grown children. It was a love she enjoyed bringing to others, which was one reason why she had worked for a group that taught classical music to African American youth.
Shout out to you, Miss Walenta. Rest in power, girl. At about 9:30 p.m. on the night of December 11th, she returned home after a rehearsal with the Wichita Symphony Orchestra and parked her SUV in front of her house. A man approached her and said, "I need help." And then he pulled a gun out, and the panicked woman started to drive away, but gunfire shattered the glass of the car window and ripped through her body. Severely wounded, but still conscious, she pressed her car's horn. Its incessant blare drew the attention of a neighbor who called 911.
Walenta survived for several days. She recovered consciousness and spoke with police from her hospital bed before dying of her injuries. In the hospital ICU, she was able to give a description of her attackers, which helped lead to their capture. She eventually succumbed to her injuries, and I read in some articles that it was 3 days, and others said it was a few weeks. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, but still unfortunate, but thank goodness she was able to give a really good description. That helped catch these guys. So on December 14th, the Carr brothers upped the ante and entered a randomly selected home. 5 people were at the home at the time. Aaron Sander, he was 29. Brad Haka, age 27. My dogs are trying to get in the garage. Sorry if you can hear them. Brad Haka, age 27. Jason Befort, age 26. Heather Muller, 25, and Holly G. She was 25. Her last name was kept secret because she is the victim of a sex crime, and she's referred to in several documents as Holly G. So just out of respect, we'll refer to her as Holly G or Holly or HG. Ooh, did you hear that? My rude neighbors are driving by.
I wasn't sure what that was.
I was going to say something about some podcasts have given her full name. Some publications have given her full name. Cat's out of the bag. But I was just thinking, to be nice, we didn't have to say it. But anyway, Brad Haka, Brad was the director of finance. Heather Muller was a preschool teacher. Aaron Sander was studying to become a priest. Jason Befort was a high school teacher, and Holly was a 5th grade teacher. Jason and Holly were dating at the time, and Heather and Aaron used to date, but they broke up when Aaron decided that he wanted to become a priest. Kind of inconvenient when you're trying to get busy with a priest, you know what I mean? One of the things that they shared was their faith, and Heather had also recently talked about becoming a nun. Brad and Aaron were Jason's roommates.
The 5 friends watched TV, ate dinner, and made conversation before heading off to their various beds. Befort and Holly were in bed sometime after 11 p.m. when the porch light suddenly came on. Don't tell me I have to get up and turn off the light again, Jason said irritably. I guess the porch light shone into his bedroom, so that's why he would turn it off every night, because it would keep him up. So, so he was irritated that the light came back on. And Holly heard talking, which she assumed was Aaron and Heather. But then the bedroom door burst open. A tall black man pointing a gun stood at the doorway. He came into the room and tore off the covers of the bed in which Holly and Jason were lying. Then a second black man, also armed with a gun, led Aaron into the room.
They demanded to know who else was in the house, then gathered all of the occupants together in Jason's room. They told him to strip naked and get in the closet. He opens the closet. You know that R. Kelly song. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't know that song.
Oh my gosh. R. Kelly has, I have to go on a tangent because R. Kelly is canceled, but he has this hit that maybe like mid 2000s. It was a 12 series, and it was called In the Closet. And the chorus is, in the closet, he opens the closet, and then it's just like, it's total nonsense. He looks in the closet and
like what?
What's in the closet? Oh man, he's a midget. I mean, R. Kelly sings the most nonsense tune, but it's so funny. Google In the Closet. You will laugh so hard. It's so funny. Anyway, so he tells them to get in the closet, and the hostages were told not to talk. And if they attempted to talk, the men would wave their guns around and tell them that they better shut the fuck up. The brothers began taking the hostages out of the room in pairs and forcing them to perform sexual acts on each other while they watched. When it was Sanders' turn and he refused, remember he was studying to be in the priesthood, they pistol whipped him until he agreed to try.
When Aaron was unable to get an erection, they beat him with a golf club and threw him back in the closet. After the brothers forced the victims to perform sexual acts on each other, Reginald then started taking each victim one by one to their banks to use their ATM cards and take out money. While he took the victims to the ATMs, Jonathan guarded the others. While he was guarding them, he also raped Heather and Holly while his brother was gone.
When Reginald took Holly to the ATM, he asked her if she enjoyed it. He meant the raping. And she told him yes, hoping to appease him. And she told him she'd never had sex with a black man before. He called her Shorty. And hello, I'm Wendy, and welcome to the Culture Corner with Wendy and Beth. Shorty is a term of endearment that men, mostly black men, I guess I could say, will say to a woman that they fancy. And he told her it was too bad that they didn't meet under other circumstances because she was cute and they probably would have gone out. HG asked if he was going to shoot her and her friends, and he said no. And she pressed him and asked, "Do you promise?" And she testified that he said, "Yeah, I'm not going to shoot you." And when they got back to the house, HE told her 3 male friends, "Hey, don't worry, guys, it'll be okay." He said he wasn't going to shoot us. And the brothers ransacked the house and found a diamond ring, which Jason had bought and planned to give to Holly. This is how she found out that he was planning to propose to her. And then they repeatedly raped Holly and Heather.
That's great.
Yeah. That's I think that really tugs at your heartstrings.
It really does. Yeah.
It was supposed to be a really happy like Christmas time, and it ended up being the total opposite.
Horrible. Yeah. So the brothers then decided to make all 5 victims get into 2 vehicles. They used Aaron's car and Jason's truck. The women were allowed to wear tops, but the men were put into the trunk of Aaron's car naked. And it was below freezing outside, mind you. They then drove the 5 victims to a snowy soccer field. All of the 5 were removed from the vehicles and forced to kneel naked in the snow. The brothers shot all 5, one by one, execution style, in the back of the head. After the brothers shot everybody, they kicked the bodies to confirm that they were dead. And then on top of that, they got into the truck belonging to Jason and drove over them.
Oh, boy. But Holly somehow miraculously survived. That's HG, y'all. Both being shot in the head and being run over by a truck in a snowy field. A barrette that she had been wearing in her hair deflected the bullet fired into her head, saving her life. Wow. I don't know how Holly survived this, but she is a miracle. Incredible. She played dead until she was sure they were gone. And when Holly heard the Carr Brothers drive off, she called out to her friends. Jason made a slight moan, and she took off her sweater and wrapped it around his head that was bleeding to try to save him.
She then looked around and saw Christmas lights in the distance. Nude and barefoot, she ran over the snow-covered fields for more than a mile, climbing over 2 fences and crossing a highway until she reached that house with the lights. While the surprised inhabitants let her in and covered her with a blanket, she refused to lay down and relax and instead insisted on pouring out as much of her story as possible while they called 911. Holly didn't know how long she'd live. She thought she was going to die, and she wanted to relate every detail of the crime as possible before she passed out. And thanks to her detailed description of the perpetrators, a news broadcast was issued immediately.
Way to go, HG.
Yeah, she's pretty amazing.
Yeah, her will to live, to live and to tell the story is remarkable.
Yeah, and make sure that these guys got caught so that her friends would get justice.
Exactly. I mean, I was just thinking if it were me, I get like a nasty Facebook message. And I'm like, I think I'm just going to lay down and die right now. You know what I mean? So just her will, her will to live it's amazing.
Well, the entire group of them, they were all mostly in service fields, teachers and, the one guy studying for the priesthood and lady thinking about becoming a nun. It seemed like they were people who wanted to help other people or wanted to serve other people,
Right.
like they were all really good people. And
Yeah.
I also listened to another podcast about this episode, and they said that the other thing Holly was concerned about, she was a teacher and she was worried about her kids and what would happen if she died. The kids in her
my
classroom, she was worried how they would be affected.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, she is the hero of the story for sure. So shout out to you, Miss Holly G.
Watch the world's biggest tennis stars clash in the California desert at the BNP Paribas Open, live on Tennis Channel.
How do they get to these shots?
Tune in daily for exclusive first ball to last coverage from Indian Wells and witness all of the jaw-dropping action as the game's top men and women square off at one of the greatest events in sports. It's tennis magic you need to see to believe. The BNP Paribas Open, live on Tennis Channel and streaming on the Tennis Channel app.
Something is creeping in, don't follow it down.
Let me introduce you to Barry Clew, an authorised financial advisor from New Zealand and a very special kind of stain on humanity.
He was a very knowledgeable young guy.
He was a registered financial advisor.
Type of guy that was bending over backwards to help you.
Now, you could be forgiven for thinking that Barry sounds like a great guy, and you'd be right. Well, right up until the point when you're wrong.
It was all fictitious.
She stole from my son who has a disability.
Chris never knew. He died believing that we're all taken care of.
A psychopath is somebody who lacks empathy, acts impulsively. I think there's a strong case that Barry might be all of those things, actually.
To find out how Barry Clew stole over $15 million from 81 victims, subscribe to Clueless, The Long Con. That's Clueless, spelt Klooghless.
The Carrs left the scene and didn't realize that there was a survivor, nor did they realize that the police were looking for them. They went back to the house and stole some more items from the home. And the last killing they performed, add this to their greatest hits, is the killing of Holly's dog, Nikki. It was a schnauzer. Killing a dog is awful.
Yeah, it is.
At 7:30 a.m. on December 15th, the truck they stole and used to run people over was spotted at an apartment complex. Someone noticed a man carrying a large TV set from the truck to an apartment. And to this, I just had to say, hold the phones. You killed 5 people. Then you ran them over. And then you drove away. And then you go to Best Buy or Fry's Electronics to get a TV?
I think it was actually stolen from their from the
Oh,
house.
okay. I thought they went to the store with the money. Okay.
Well, I wouldn't be
Ooh,
surprised.
Still
yeah.
awful.
Yeah, still
So,
awful.
thank you for clarifying that for me, Beth. So Reginald's girlfriend answered the door and police arrested him as he tried to climb out of a window. Jonathan was arrested later that day when his girlfriend's mother called the police on a suspicion that he was the man they were looking for. He had the diamond ring intended for Holly in his pocket. The Carrs were arrested less than 12 hours after the events of December 14th. So shout out to you, police.
Yeah. When news of the brothers' arrest was broadcast locally, Andrew Schreiber recognized them as the men who'd kidnapped him a week earlier. If you remember, he was the coach who was taken to his ATM to get money out. So he contacted the police. At the time of the Carrs' arrest, Anne Walenta was still alive in the hospital. Police showed her a photographic lineup that included the Carr brothers. The dying woman picked out Reginald as the man who shot her. and bullets from all 3 crime scenes, from the tires on Schreiber's car, from Walenta's body, and from the 5 victims of the home invasion, all matched. The brothers were found with multiple items belonging to the victims. Jonathan Carr's DNA was found in a semen spot on the carpet of the Birchwood home and on swabs taken from Holly. Blood spots from Heather Muller were found on Reginald's clothing as well.
Okay, so these guys were caught and they were taken to trial. Because the perpetrators were black and the victims were white, a lot of people wanted the 2 to be charged with a hate crime. But the district attorney, Nola Folston, said the fact that the defendants and victims happened to be of different races had no bearing. She contended that there was no evidence race was the motive. No racial slurs were made against any of the victims. And Folston maintained that the robbery was at the root of these crimes.
And then the defense wanted to divide the trials, 1 trial for each brother. And from a defense standpoint, if the trials are divided, then each brother would be able to blame the other, which is convenient for defense. But the judge denied the motion and they were tried together. Much of the testimony was grisly, as you might imagine. The most riveting witness was H.G., who was called to the stand early in the trial. She described the ordeal of rape that she and her friends had endured, the way they were taken to the ATMs, and finally the brutal shootings. Jonathan's girlfriend and her mother and Reginald's girlfriend also testified against the brothers.
In their summations, defense attorneys for each Carr brother pointed fingers at the other. Reginald's attorney emphasized that there were inconsistencies in witness identification and noted that DNA at the crime scene belonged to Jonathan rather than Reginald. Jonathan's attorney reminded the jury that both Ann Walenta and Andrew Schreiber had identified Reginald, but not Jonathan. Reginald was the one found with most of the belongings stolen that night. Reginald Carr was not alone, Jonathan's attorney said, but the evidence will show who was playing the lead role that night, directing things, taking things. Don't just go back there and check the box guilty on all counts. Please consider Jonathan's guilt and innocence separate from damning evidence against his brother, Reginald.
So, yeah, they were pitting the brothers against each other anyway, regardless. Yeah. And on November 4th, 2002, the jury returned its verdicts. Jonathan and Reginald were convicted on almost all counts.
Yes.
Those convictions included multiple counts of capital murder, aggravated kidnapping, aggravated robbery, and rape. They were convicted of raping the males as well as the female victims. The jury did not forget little Nicky, the schnauzer, and found both brothers guilty of animal cruelty. Jonathan was acquitted on 4 counts of the kidnapping and robbery of Andrew Schreiber. Those were the only counts that
did not stick.
They were acquitted on. Yeah. In 2004, the Kansas Supreme Court ruled the state's death penalty statute to be unconstitutional. The decision was later reversed by the U.S. Supreme Court in 2005, effectively reinstating the statute. So when the Kansas Supreme Court ruled that the death penalty was unconstitutional, they were taken off of death row. But then when the U.S. Supreme Court reinstated it, that meant that the Carrs and other condemned killers were returned to death row. The Carrs' defense attorneys continued appeals.
So on July 25th, 2014, the Kansas Supreme Court overturned the death sentences against the Carrs based on trial judge error, arguing that a trial judge is required, or a trial is required for each of the brothers. And if you recall, the decision had been made to try them jointly. Jonathan Carr argued that he was not as responsible as his brother for the crimes and that Reginald Carr had been a bad influence on him during their troubled childhoods. The state attorney general appealed its high court's decision to the U.S. Supreme Court, which had no time for this, and agreed in March 2015 to hear the case. And in January 2016, the U.S. Supreme Court overturned the decision of the Kansas Supreme Court and reinstated those death sentences.
Is the pressure of your wedding day being perfect from sunrise to sunset weighing on your mind? Planning a wedding is stressful. But guess what? We are here to help. On the Bridezilla podcast, we celebrate love and help you plan your wedding day. We're all about keeping it real and having fun every step of the way. So whether you're just starting to plan or counting down the days, we're here to help you stay cool, calm, and collected. We have expert tips and amazing guests, like wedding dress designer Haley Page. Let's get this party started and embrace your inner Bridezilla. Listen to Bridezilla wherever you get podcasts or visit us at thebridezilla.com.
So it was a real roller coaster.
It was, but I think in the end,
back and forth.
justice was served. So see, the Supreme Court is good for something.
I don't have a problem with that. Yeah.
So where are they now?
The Carr Brothers are now currently sitting on death row in Kansas's El Dorado Correctional Facility. Ann Walenta had worked for the Northeast Area Strings Academy of Wichita, which goes by the acronym NASAW, that describes itself as a summer classical music school dedicated to the preparation and education of the African American string player.
That's awesome.
She was honored by a NASAW student, Titus James Jr., who dedicated his cello performance at a scholarship competition to her. And her husband, Don, and their 2 children established the Ann Walenta Music Scholarship as a means to continue her music legacy and to honor her.
That's great. Others have sought in different ways to honor the victims. A memorial golf tournament was held for Brad Heckia. The victims' families joined with the Wichita Community Foundation to found the Forget Me Not Memorial Scholarships. Holly G. and Andrew Schreiber became friendly during the Carr trial. They dated for a while, and then they got married in 2004. Hallelujah!
Yeah, so that's a pretty bright spot in this sad story.
Yes. So one of the things Beth and I like to get into, because we love true crime, we want to know what made these people snap. And to be honest with you, I don't know why they went to Wichita or what led them to start robbing, shooting, and raping people in that particular December. But they do check all of the risk factor boxes that increase the probability that they would develop problems later in life, including dysfunctional family, abuse, violence, and drugs. Also, the BB gun bullet in the head probably didn't help.
Yeah, they had a terrible childhood. So I watched a documentary on YouTube. It was a really weird true crime documentary.
Oh, really? Oh, boy.
Yeah, I'd never seen anything like it.
What?
It seemed like it was Christian true crime.
Oh,
yeah.
boy. Okay.
It was called Thou Shalt Not.
Okay.
And they would tell the story of the crime and then parallel it with a Bible verse, and I don't know, it was really weird.
Oh, boy.
So I can't say that I recommend it.
Okay.
But I did watch it for the information. And interestingly, it's on a network I had never heard of before called TV One, which is supposed to be a rival to BET.
I've never heard of that network either.
Yeah. I thought that was interesting. Anyway, they said that the brothers were often left to their own devices as children and pretty much raised themselves since their father was out of the picture and their mother was often not around. She was doing drugs. So that the brothers formed a really close bond because of that.
Mhm.
And as I mentioned earlier, the fact that Reginald was sexually active at 6 years old is telling.
Mhm.
6-year-olds don't really think about sex.
Mm-mm.
It's just not something that's on their radar.
Mhm.
So, as I said, I suspect that he was sexually abused by someone. And I am pretty sure that that had something to do with it. I mean, with all the sexual abuse that was going on with the crime,
Mhm.
it's just so weird.
Yeah.
So weird.
Yeah. Something I 100% agree with you. Something probably happened. I'm
Yeah.
sure something happened to them when they were younger.
Something happened to this kid.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's not, as I tell my daughter when we discuss people that affect us, it's
Mhm.
not an excuse. It's an explanation.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a fair point too. Yeah. Well, let's get into our takeaways.
Okay.
To me, this crime is interesting because it's transracial. I do not believe that these guys were out to kill white people. I think that they just happen to be in a PWS, which is short for predominantly white space, and they wanted to do some fucked up shit.
More culture.
Hey, again with the culture hour with Wendy and Beth, and they wanted to do some fucked up shit, and the only people around were white. So again, I don't know any black people from Kansas. Do you? And if you're listening and you are a black person in Kansas, please like send us an email or add us or
Give us a shout out.
on
Yeah.
the Facebook discussion group, because I'm telling you, it's coming up goose eggs for me. I think at the time there was some attempt to turn this into a, oh no, black people are targeting white people and raping and murdering them. But that's not true. White people were the only people around for these fucks to choose from. Black people are not engaged in any kind of race war, nor have we ever been in a race war. There is certainly an anti-white supremacy war, which is different, and the publications who implied that are messy hoes and should be ashamed of themselves. Hip hop air horn. Okay, I'm about now.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it was a hate crime. I looked up Wichita, and the 2010 census shows the African American makeup of the city of Wichita was 11.5%, so very small. So I think it was probably just opportunity or even class related. They were looking for people to rob and seemed to think that these people were rich. So, and also that crazy Christian true crime show said that they actually followed a woman home. They were planning on robbing her, but they went to the wrong door. So that's the only place where I heard that. But yeah, they were just looking for somebody to rob, and I don't think they even planned to do this crime.
It just
but then
escalated
there they were,
and went horribly
and
wrong.
they just did it. And I didn't read anywhere that the brothers said anything to the victims that they were chosen because of their race. And actually, as weird as it is, it seemed like Reginald had a soft spot for Holly. I know that that's weird, but he was calling her Shorty. And when they got into the cars to drive him out into the field, he had her go in the truck with him when all the other people were in the car. It's nuts because then they shot her in the head. So
yeah, not something you do to somebody you fancy.
Yeah, it's pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
But yeah, it didn't seem to me like it was a race crime at all. And also, one other thing I forgot, his girlfriend, Reginald's girlfriend, was white.
Oh, get out of here. Hey, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
All right. It sounds like he's got a type. You know, he's got a
yeah,
preference.
yeah. It seems like he likes white women. So yeah. Anyway, it disturbed me how many white people wanted this to be a hate crime.
Oh my gosh, I read the blogs too, and I was like, I can't believe that people like they were actively like trying to make this into like a race
A hate
thing.
crime.
Yeah, a hate
Yeah.
crime. And
And
I
it
was
really
reading
didn't
the
have
blogs.
anything to do with race.
Yeah, I was shocked at the people's response on these like little private messaging groups and stuff. Like, holy shit!
Yeah.
Those posts are still up.
Yeah, never read the
Anybody can go.
comments, Wendy. Never read the
I
comments.
need to not do that. Yeah, you're right.
So the last thing I wanted to say was that I do think that Reginald was a bad influence on Jonathan.
Yeah.
Since he was the older brother.
Yeah.
But Jonathan was an adult at this point, and he made choices, and he definitely participated willingly, and he did some of the crimes on his own. I mean, when Reginald was taking some of them to ATMs, Jonathan was back guarding them and raping the women. So, yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
He,
You're right. He was
may
an
have
adult.
been a bad influence, but yeah, he made choices.
He did. So, if you love true crime and you don't want to die, here's a tip for you.
This segment is not intended to be victim blaming. We thought of this segment because I read somewhere that a lot of people listen to true crime because they want to know what they can do to be safer. But in my mind, this is not meant to blame the victims. It's just learning from other people's mistakes. Sometimes we have no suggestions for a particular episode and we'll just offer up generic tips.
That's right. So this is a home invasion gone horribly wrong. My tips are not new. We've recommended this in the past. Simply Safe. By the way, please sponsor our show, Simply Safe. It's a security system that you install yourself so a convicted felon doesn't have to come in from ADT or wherever and install it for you. But also, you can go to Lowe's and get like security they're like tags, but you stick them to doors and windows, and they beep or chirp whenever the window is or door is breached. And I had terrible postpartum depression. I actually don't have one happy memory from my daughter's first year being alive. But anyway, but I was certain at that time that my whole family was going to die. So we every door and window of our house got these security tags, and they made me feel better. So, and they're like $5 each at Lowe's. So, and then one of the victims was killed in her car. And carjacking seems totally outside of the realm of possibilities and things, that could never happen to me. But it actually can. So, my other tip is don't sit and text in your car. It makes you a sitting duck. And before you get out, look around. I told my kids today when we pulled up to the house, do you see anybody who wants to kill us? Okay, let's get out.
Yeah, it's always good to be aware of your surroundings, see what's up. Yeah. I agree with your recommendations. And they don't know how the cars got into the home. And it's possible that someone opened the door for them. One of the things that Holly said was that Jason complained about the porch light going back on after he turned it out for the night. So it's possible that the cars knocked on the door and one of the inhabitants turned on the porch light and opened it. I leave my porch light on all night.
Me
so
too.
if someone comes to the door, I can look through the peephole. They can't see that I'm there, but I can see who it is without turning on the light. So they don't know that I'm there.
Yeah.
And I would again suggest not opening the door for strangers. Ask who is there through the door. Call 911 if they want help or if they start acting strangely. Go ahead and, as my daughter says, call 911 whizzle.
911 whizzle. Yes, that would be an appropriate time to call 911. I know that some people are out here
I'm going to call them white people out here calling 911 for very unnecessary reasons. But in this instance,
this
Beth
is
is
appropriate,
absolutely
yeah.
right. This is appropriate. Well, that wraps up the story. So, hey, did you just hear that glitter? Did you just see that unicorn walk by? We've got listener letters. So, all right. I might even have to stand up to read this one because this is a review that's been eating at me for a while. So we're a new podcast, but this is a labor of love. And I have to share this review with you. Everybody can see it. You can go on iTunes and check it out. And I'll tell you that what he said, and I'm going to tell you then my thoughts. I'm assuming is if I'm wrong, then prove it. But I'm assuming he's a dude. He titled it "So Disappointed." I was looking forward to the Baseline Killer podcast episode. That was one of our first episodes. He was active in my area. In fact, one of his victims was found across the street from my house, and another 2 just a couple miles away. The hosts do not seem to understand the grip of terror and worry Phoenix was under at the time, and briefly touched on another 2 serial killers working at the same time, when in fact Phoenix initially thought it was all one killer. This is the only podcast I've found about the Baseline Killer, and amazingly, it's poorly presented. Well, in case you didn't notice, this is a show about true crime and people of color. We mentioned in our episode that we were not going to get into those 2 crazy white fuckos who were shooting people at random because they were white. And there was already plenty of coverage about them. So, also, Beth did share how terrifying it was for her to work on the same block where Godot lived and took one of his victims. If you want to hear about a white serial killer, my man, there are plenty of podcasts for you out there to listen to. And unfortunately, Boo, we are just not one of them. We are talking about POC perps and POC victims. And if it wasn't clear from the title, I'm sorry you were confused. If I had a gunshot sound effect, I would shoot it, but I don't. All I have is the hip hop air horn. So, mister, I'm grateful that you listened to the show. I'm grateful that you wrote a review. I just disagree with you. So,
yeah, I don't really understand his complaints because we did clearly say that what the podcast was about and that we were not going to talk about the Phoenix shooters because they were white guys.
Yeah.
And we talked about how Phoenix initially thought it was all one killer. I talked about how scary it was. So I don't know. I don't really understand those complaints. I can understand if he just didn't like it. He didn't like the presentation.
Yeah, for sure.
He didn't like us or whatever. That's fine. But I don't really understand those particular complaints. But whatever.
Well, that's okay. And I will say to whatever. Oh, go ahead, Beth.
Oh, I was just going to say also, you have to keep in mind that was our very first episode ever of doing any podcast ever.
Yeah, we don't. I mean, we're still learning, but like we were baby podcasters at the time.
Oh
and
yeah, we're still baby podcasters, but yeah, that was our very first. That was our first step.
Yeah, and so we did our best, and we understand that not everybody will love what we do, but we want continued feedback. So don't just say mean things about us so we'll read your reviews on the show, okay?
Yeah, don't do that. We'll read the good ones too.
Yeah.
we usually read the good ones.
We usually read the good ones. But this one was like, I've just been thinking about this review for a long time because I was like, but we did. So anyway,
yeah, I'm thinking maybe he didn't even listen to the whole episode.
Oh, you could be right, Beth.
Yeah, because I mean, we talked about all of those things, so I don't know.
We did, and it was a two-parter, remember? So
Yeah, it was, and I think maybe he was just, we irritated him, and so yeah, I don't know.
And
I mean,
that's all right.
that's fine.
Well, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm adding you to my prayer list.
Yep, you're going on the prayer list.
You're on the prayer list. So anyway, if you want to find us, where should the people go, Beth?
Oh, where to find us? Our website is fruitloopspod.com. Our Facebook page is Fruit Loops Pod, and our discussion group is Fruit Loops Pod Discussion on Facebook. We are also on Twitter and Instagram at Fruit Loops Pod, and also our links to our sources will be in our footnotes. And if you want to support the show, you can send us a donation on the Cash App, which you can download to your phone, or you can find online at cash.me/$ Fruit Pod. Or you can become a monthly patron through our Podbean patron page, which is patron.podbean.com/Fruit Loops Pod. This will help us pay for things like our website and pod hosting. There's no minimum and no commitment. Even $1 would help.
That's right. Now, this is a weekly podcast, you guys, and new episodes drop every Thursday. So until next time, look alive, guys. It's crazy out there.
Well, that's the episode. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. Me, Beth, and Minnie all hope that you loved it. We hope all of the things, the takes, and the how not to get murdered tips still hold up. But if you can think of something that will help us make the show better or that you want to let us know about, you know how to get at us. We will see you when we get back from our break in February. And we wish you all the happiest of New Year's. And we want to remind you, hey, look alive, y'all. It's crazy out there.
From DNA testing to the Dixie Mafia, Crime Capsule brings you new stories of true crime in American history. I'm your host, Benjamin Morris. Join us for exclusive interviews with authors from Arcadia Publishing, writing the hottest books on the most chilling stories of our country's past. You can find us wherever you get your favorite podcasts or on evergreenpodcasts.com. Crime Capsule. History so interesting, it's criminal.
24 hours ago, I found out the person that I'd been dating and seeing for the last 6 months as a con man.
That is my sister Emma. Andrew Tonks's lies had been so convincing, she'd invested $300,000 with him. However, the tables were about to turn on Andrew. What he didn't know was that Emma had discovered his real identity. But to get any chance of justice, Emma had to act like it was business as usual. Coming up in this series,
and that's when murder, all this stuff goes through my mind. I'm really, really scared.
I'm assuming Sarah has watched too much Netflix and figures I've been defrauding you. Couldn't be further from the truth.
That's what this was, a real-life story that seems so unbelievable, but it was actually true.
A true story that all starts with one simple swipe to the right. I'm Sarah Ferris.
And I'm Emma Ferris, and this is my story, Conning the Con.